Module 2, AD administration. So we have a lot of lesson like definition of terms first. What is AD? What are objects, forest, domain, and schema? So what is AD? AD is composed of both logical and physical. So these are the logical components which exist in a physical components. One reason being physical because they have a file. So DC has its own database which is called ntds.bit. Okay, and located on C colon winnt slash so Windows slash NT. Okay, so that is the data store which stores the database, log files, and any Active Directory component. Okay. So we're going to start with objects. What is objects? Okay. Objects composed of users like you, me, no, I'm a user. Objects composed of groups. So group is a collection of users. Group maraming tao. No? Groups can be categorized as security with security ID or distribution without security ID. Distribution, you cannot assign permission. Security, you can assign and deny permission. Okay, what's the difference between the two? Security group, you can assign permission. Distribution, you cannot assign. Okay, normally used for email blasting. Group scope, local, which gives you local admin rights and so on. Domain local, you have power to administer using domain account in a local computer, right? Global, you have permission to any domain, no, to a single domain and any member of the domain. Okay, meaning let's say your domain is nexus.local. So any server can be managed globally. Yun yung global. Universal, any domain inside the single forest. What is forest? Mamaya di-discuss ko. What is forest? Okay, nuggets ba? Local, computer only. Domain local, it's a domain account, but you have local admin permission. Global, you have access to any servers within the domain. Okay, single domain. Universal, single forest, pero but you can have access to any global servers. Okay. Next, computer objects. These are servers, computers, laptops, and any devices. So when I say object, it means users, groups, computers. Forest. What is forest? Forest is a security boundary, meaning forest is a replication boundary of any domain. So let's say you have a single domain, let's say nexus.local. Any domain within that forest will have a replication. Okay. So forest essentially is a collection of domains. Okay. Domain is a collection of many objects. Okay. Domain itself is a replication boundary, which means you can only replicate anything within the single domain. Admin Center is the management tool. Domain provides authentication and authorization. What is domain for? It provides authentication and authorization. So what is authentication and authorization? I'll discuss later. Next is trust relationship. Trust provide access to resource complex in AD. Let's say you have two forests and you want to log into another forest. You have to set up trust. Okay, what is trust? Trust provide access to resource in a complex AD environment. There are many types of trust. Okay, so if you want a full reference, you can open the page 109 about Active Directory, DSRM, accounts, groups, type of local groups, okay, and how to manage Active Directory using PowerShell. So everything are here. Okay. So parent and child, let's say, for example, your parent forest is IBM.com. IBM. Child forest is Lenovo.com. So let's say from Lenovo.com, your login ID, and you want to access resources from IBM.com, you can do so using a child ID. Okay, once you set up trust. Remember, Lenovo is a laptop, no? And IBM is the mother company of Lenovo. So it's a conglomerate of company. So instead of using IBM.com and you were hired under Lenovo project, your email will be, let's say, Chris@lenovo.com, but you want to log in sa IBM, which is parent. So you have to set up trust relationship. So you can access resources from the parent. Okay? That's parent and child. Next is tree root. So from the word itself, root is the first domain. Okay? In a forest. So essentially, when you create the first domain, that will become tree root. What is tree root? It's the first domain in a forest. Okay? External trust, let's say IBM has a supplier of PC Express. They provide motherboard, memory, network card. Okay? So let's say I want to grant them in our SharePoint portal to see the number of stocks. Say we're low on motherboard. So when they log in, when PC Express log in using PC Express UPN, they have, let's say, read access. They can be able to say to see yung number of stocks available. Hence, they can supply. So that's external to organization. Okay, realm is the exact domain access. Okay, forest, yun nga, composed of domain. No, so if you want to log in from one domain to another, let's say ibm.com.ph and then login sa ibm.com.au, you have to set up forest to forest trust relationship. Okay. Then there's a shortcut trust. Shortcut trust is a direct connection. It's a shortcut going to the tree root. Let's say PNB, bdo.com, and he wants to connect to server 1 in Nexus local. You have to create shortcut, meaning he bypass yung parent. You don't have to log in sa parent. You have to your BDO UPN can log in directly sa Nexus local. So you get it. So it's just a tick box, no? You can set up trust relationship. So these are types of trust. Compare authentication authorization. So what is authentication? Authentication identifies you, who you are, right? It requests for legitimate credential. So before you can have access, you will need to pass your biodata, your resume, social security number, SSS number, PhilHealth number. Then they will create your ID. So they want to make sure that it is really you. So authentication is like an ID, which you submit in a domain controller for you to become authenticated. Okay? Authorization determines where, saan yung access mo. No? In English, where is your access? So authorization is a resource. Authentication is the ID. Okay, let's say you were granted access to server 1 and 2 only, but you don't have access to server 3. Okay, so where are you authorized? 1 and 2. It's like buying a cinema ticket. Let's say you bought cinema ticket 1, meaning you can watch movie in cinema 1, but you don't have access cinema 2. Okay? Is that clear? Is the analogy clear? OU,
Yes,
what is
sir.
OU? Organizational unit. It's a container. So it's a holder of objects. Okay. Why do you create OU? So you can delegate the admin permission. Let's say help desk level 1. Grant password reset permission. Okay. So that's the purpose of OU. Schema is the blueprint. It's a database of Active Directory. What is schema? It's a database of Active Directory. Let's say here, uh, user principal name. This is the row, no? That user principal name has a value of your actual name. No? So may value. So these are tables, collection of tables, which has exact value, no? Schema. So that's database. AD replication within AD infra, standard DC, replicate ADE by using multi-master. How do they replicate? Let's say, where's my image? Let's say I created Active Directory in server 1, say one user. How do I replicate here? Right? So by default, it has a multi-master, meaning everyone is a master. They can push, they can pull, they can upload, they can download, they can replicate, they can copy. Okay, master. Malinaw ba yung master? Anybody can replicate. Okay, pull base, you can only download. Store and forward, in Active Directory, let's say created user, it will store and then forward to the next DC, store, then forward to the next DC, which means this one does not replicate from the first DC. Okay, so multi-master, anybody can replicate to anyone. Okay, data store partitioning, so there's a separate database for database. Autogen, by default, when you install DC, autogen and topology, meaning multi-master, everyone is multi-master. And there's an attribute level replication. Let's say you want to replicate this attribute home phone to any user in a domain. So that means they will copy the telephone number, only this one, but not all attributes. Okay, specific attribute level. And then there's a distinct control of inter-site replication. Let's say, you have another site. You want to replicate to external site. You can do so, no, by setting up trust relationship. And there's a collision detection and management. Let's say, for example, you created user Andrea Brillantes, and then at the same time, Andrea Brillantes. Then within a few minutes, they will do replication. Since both are the same name, no, but different security ID, they will check yung the collision. Why they have the same attribute? Okay, why do they have the same name? Diba? So it will perform collision detection, and management will do REPL admin command, not to do a force replication and discard the second identity. So who will win? The one with the last update. Let's say sabay kayo. No? For sure, merong split seconds difference. The one with the last security ID, the one with the latest security ID will win. Okay, if it exists, the one existing already. Let's say there's already an ID, and then someone created. He will just say you have to manually discard the user, no, after replication. So when you log in, what's happening? So when you log in, you provide username, password. Tawagin na lang natin. Let's call it UPN. UPN is an email address. So you log in using UPN. That UPN is within DC. That DC will be granted a TGT, which is ticket granting ticket. It's a ticket which grants another ticket. Then it will be given back to you. Okay. Then the client uses this one to apply to workstation. Let's say your laptop. So you'll be granted access to your laptop, or server one, you'll be granted to access to server one. Or if you're a member of global security, you'll be granted all access to any server within the same domain. Okay? DC will grant access to workstation and any server in the domain. That ticket can be accessed any server within the domain. Okay, so simple as so when you log in, what will happen? DC will give you a ticket. Then that ticket contains your credential. Now that ticket will also be granted another ticket to access to each server. Okay, so somehow it's like authentication, who you are, and the ticket will give you access to domain if you're part of the domain group. So yan ang ating sign-in process. Okay, so deploy na natin. Let's deploy our Active Directory. So in our next project, we're gonna install domain controller. And then promote this one. Okay, and then AD, we're gonna manage the domain controller. Okay, so before we move in our project, let's finish our pending task. So meron akong pending task, server 1 Yan, so finish na yung server 1. So I'm gonna install, wait, first, I have to put, remember, we have to put IP address. So do not forget this task. Huh? So first step, go to control. Control. So this is the post installation. So, ang tagal naman. Remember server 1. I can go here. Control panel. There, this control panel. Let's wait. Put an IP address. Since this is 1, it's gonna be .21. Okay, so you have your guide. So change the IP. So go to view network status. Ethernet. So this is done manually. Okay, because this is the initial configuration stage. You can do it programmatically as well. But I want to make a demonstration because I want to make sure you understand. Okay. Gateway 10.1.1.1 DNS is itself. Okay. Because this will become a DNS eventually. Okay. So IP, that's done. I've done this already. And then if you have root access at execution passively, remote sign. But not necessarily at this stage. And then set time zone if you want to. And then rename the computer. You can rename easily by going to system. That's the two most important part, renaming and putting IP address. So I'm just doing the important ones. I'm skipping the time zone. So time zone can be done whenever you want. So system name, rename this PC. Do not forget the correct naming convention. Huh? Server 1. Else, that will be registered in your DNS. Then restart. Restart now. Okay, if you notice my time zone is wrong, so that's wrong. That's okay. So login 1, welcome. So stick to the password. So that's done. You have your first server. Okay, so our first project is completed. So we created server 1, and then server 2 can be configured using your own time, server 3 and server 4, just in case you need server 4. So same task. So that's project number 1. Okay. Project number 2, we're gonna make this, we're gonna install Active Directory first. So we're gonna perform a simple admin task. We're gonna create objects and use Windows PowerShell. So that's project number 2. So first task, we need to open Server Manager. See this add roles. Just click add roles once this one is finished. Okay, so it's doing validation, reading. Okay, let's wait until it finish. Okay, okay. So in your lab, you have to be patient, no? Kasi you're sharing host, no? You're sharing single host. Okay, tapos na ba? Tagal lang to. Add roles. Hindi pa tapos. That's not finish. Remember, it's dynamically expanding as we perform the hands-on. Pero once settle, okay na yan. Mabilis na yan. Okay? So add, tama, when I click add roles, sabihin niya, it's still collecting inventory data. Okay, let's wait until this one is finished.
Sir, question.
Oh, go ahead. Wait,
Sir,
tapos na.
yung replication, you mentioned sa server 1 and 2,
Mm-mm.
replicate ni 1 sa 2. So parang siya yung parang disaster recovery, parang gano'n.
In such a way, in case server 1 goes down, you still have second domain controller. Na users na server 3 can still be authenticated. Parang DR. O somehow fault tolerant, no? And the failover. Mamaya meron tayong failover topic.
Thank you, sir.
Disaster recovery kasi more on moving to another physical site. Okay, add role. O, di maka-join si Rowena sa Zoom. Bakit? Sandali, may nagchat-chat na. Please join. Okay, so the usual stuff, which you can skip. And then it's asking the usual stuff. Where do you want to install? Server or desktop server? Okay, so I'm going to install the domain controller or AD in server 1, which has an IP of 1.21. And then what do you want to install? Active Directory domain services. And add all the features. Next, next, next. Until you start installation. Okay, so that will take a while. So that's the project number 2 to install Active Directory. Now, we also need to install Active Directory dito sa server 2, right? So later on, siguro during break, maglalagin ako sa server 2 kasi right now medyo mabagal siya. No? So I install ko using our PowerShell script naman. Oh, sorry, in English. We're going to install Active Directory using PowerShell script. So here's the script. So the command is install Windows feature, AD domain services, including everything. And then let's verify, okay? And then install the forest. The forest name is Nexus local. Then install AD, then verify. Then congratulations, you have installed the AD on a second server. Okay, so this is server 2. Okay, so do not forget, you have to put IP address. No? So refer to the diagram 10.1.1.22. Okay, 10.1.1.22. So we're doing multitasking here. So this is the first one. View installation. So it's doing installation. Do not be confused. This is server 1. That's how you identify. Server 1, server 2. Usually, I put server 1 on the left pane, server 2 on the right pane. Okay. So first thing you need to do, anybody help me? During post installation, what do I need to do?
Put
Put
the IP
IP
address.
address. Tama, IP address. Yan. Medyo mabilis na. This one's still doing installation. IP address, change the host name, and then reboot. So in reality, Hyper-V is a physical server, physical. The reason why it's slow kasi I put in VMware. That's why it's slow eh. Ay, but password. Server 2, put the server name. Server 2, make sure it's correct. Restart later. Yeah, those are the two most important ones. No? Anybody, what will be the IP address of server 2? Kahit sino.
22.
Correct, .22. Okay, so just look for IPv4. Yun. Teka, bakit? Ayun, tama. Double click, and then put an IP address. 10.22. Okay. DNS is the first server. 10.1.21. First server. Kaya 1. Yun lang. That's all you need. Then reboot. Then we're gonna install AD on the second DC. Sorry, second server.
Sir, hello po. May
Go
quick
ahead.
question lang po sana.
Sure.
Once na mag-start po kami dun sa lab, is there gonna be like a group chat kung saan po kami pwedeng magtanong ng
Yes.
ano?
This our Skype. So this will be our group chat. You can ask a question. Pero I would suggest normally watch the module. Let's say you want to perform module 1. Watch the YouTube muna, no? And then follow the step by step because it's really a complicated steps. It's not a yes or no question. No? So it's very complicated steps. So meron tayong support no, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I have work also. I cannot support anytime after 5 p.m. No? So pag 5 p.m. May on-call din ako. I still have work. No? Minsan, reply ko probably after 2 hours. 3 hours. Because we're not allowed to chat externally. So may support
Sir,
7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So after 5 p.m. wala na. Tulog na ako nun. I'm sleeping. I'm resting na.
sir,
Okay?
Sige
question
po,
lang po,
thank you.
verify lang. Sir,
Yeah.
after we completed the IT training for sysadmin,
Uh,
tama po ba, wala po siyang corresponding na exam or
Wala.
certification? Wala na po.
Wala, tinanggal na. Pero they want to reinstate. I think 2021 may exam na yata eh. Or 2022. I think there's an exam.
Okay, sir. Thank you po.
I'm not sure. No? Pero as of, alam ko, MCSC is obsolete since last year. So the one who has this title is a legend. Is a legend. Okay, so we have an IP. So our second project. What is this second project? We're gonna install second AD in server 2. Okay. Pero we have to finish this. And so server 1, it's saying promote this server. So you need to promote. So this can become domain controller. What is DC? I already explained to you what is DC. DC provides authentication and authorization. So it's doing inventory. And so there are 3 types of domain controller. Okay. If you want to join to an existing domain, you choose this one. If you want to add a new domain sa existing forest, you choose the second one. But since this is the first one, ano to? New forest, 3 root. Okay? So this will be the first root domain or the first domain. So I'll call it nexus.local. It's up to you. What do you want? Whatever you want. As long as it's that local. Okay? So it will not replicate to the internet. No? Anyway, wala namang connection to it kasi I set up internal. Okay, so for functional level, if you want to, if you have an environment which still uses 2016, pwede. If you have an environment which still uses 2008, so you can, propagate AD object, select this one. Okay. Pero since I don't have anything, everything will be 2016. I'll utilize 2016. Sorry, 2019. No, this 2019, it has backward compatibility sa 2016. Okay. So password should be one welcome, the one I defined. Do not change kasi this will be used to restore your account. Okay, this is just warning, so ignore. Click next. NetBIOS is the, let's say you have a Windows 7, they used to connect sa NetBIOS. Okay? Yung 11 characters lang. So NetBIOS is the server domain name, which is Nexus as well. Okay, so this is a store, data store. It will be located, database of AD will be under Windows NTDS, same with log files, same with the sysvol. Sysvol contains the domain, the forest, and the volumes. Okay, so review your selections, select next, and then it will do inventory, verifying prerequisite for DC operation. So this will take a while. So once this is set up, that's the only time you can do the second domain controller. So hindi mo pwedeng i-create ito without the first one. Okay, tawagin natin host master because this is the master, the first one. This will be some sort of secondary, pero wala, hindi naman backup. It's not some sort. Pwede rin backup. Okay, this will take a while. Okay? This will take, ayan. Sabi, all prerequisite check pass. So, click install. And so, progressing. So, siguro first day niya, it will take you 4 hours to do this one. Okay, so sabi dito, 2019 has default security settings, cryptography. Ayan. So dito, re-ready lang natin. First thing you need to do, you have to join sa domain. Okay? Ano yung first thing you need to do? Join to the domain. So I want to make sure reachable lang domain by opening a command prompt. And then piping natin si server 1. So that's the first thing you need to do. So still waiting for DNS installation. So by default, I selected DNS para ma-install yung DNS so they can install DNS as well. So I'm gonna go command prompt. Then just type your IP. What's your IP? So 22. Let's ping server 1 kung pingable. Yes, pingable. Okay? Pingable is server 1 natin. So that's good. That's good sign. So that's all we need. We need next thing. We need to add this one to the domain. Pero hindi pa tapos yun. But this is not yet finished. So we have to wait until this one is finished. Okay? You have to make sure you also have DNS. Okay, so do we have DNS? Yeah, we have DNS. DNS main function is to resolve hostname to IP. So that's why when I ping the hostname, he's throwing up IP address. Yan na. Okay, so returning IP. So while waiting for domain controller installation to finish, let's progress to our next topic. So lesson 3, administration. So lesson describe purpose of how to administer domain controller, okay, operation master, running operation master, and so on. So first of all, what is DC? Okay. So domain controller are server that hosts the database, which is ntds.dit and sysvol. Domain controller primary function is to authenticate and to authorize. Okay. Best practice for availability, you need at least 2, minimum 2. Okay. And for security, you need to install BitLocker. What is BitLocker? But BitLocker is when your user log into the domain, they'll be asking first for BitLocker PIN number, no, minimum 6 characters. So you need to type the BitLocker. Once identified in BitLock, that's the time you have to provide username and password, okay, to join inside the domain. So multiple domain controller is the best practice, which will provide load balancing. Okay. So therefore, redundancy with fewer fail points, meaning you eliminate the single point of failure. Ibig sabihin, even if one host fail, if one DC fails, your service still up and running. Okay, that's DC. Next is,
Sir?
yeah, go
Sir,
ahead.
sorry. Question. What is ano po? RODC po?
Read-only domain controllers, meaning you can create another domain controller on another server which replicates the objects. Okay, which replicates the objects. So, but you can only access. You can only be authenticated. You cannot change the password from RODC. Let's say, for example, this is RODC. Ito ka, server 3 user, naglogging ka, and you want to change the password. The password will be changed into directly from the master DC. Then master DC will propagate the attribute level to the RODC. Hence, this is only used for authentication, but you cannot change any attribute. That's why it's read only. Okay, did
Thank you
I
po.
answer? Okay.
Okay, thank you po.
Next is a global catalog. Global catalog hosts partial attribute like username, password, address, telephone, okay, contact number. So it save partial attribute from other domain. So let's say, for example, this one is a global catalog. So the user and object from here creates a catalog to the master. Okay. Let's say this is another DC. So the user's object, the objects from here will create a catalog to here for easier referencing. Okay. So what's the purpose of a catalog? Support queries for object throughout the whole forest. Okay. In a single domain, you should configure all DC to hold a copy of global catalog. The one analogy is like when you go to the library. Let's say you're looking for Harry Potter book. So what's the first thing you need to do? The first thing you need to do is you have to go to index. What do you call that one? Catalog section. Catalog section contains sorted alphabetically from A to Z. Okay, so if you're looking for Harry Potter, which cabinet you will open? Letter H, diba? So H, and to look for Harry Potter. And then in that index card contains the X and Y coordinates where the book is located. Okay, so in short, global catalog used for easier searching, faster searching. Try to imagine another controller is hosted in London or in New York. That will take a while, right? So instead of going to each domain controller globally, it will just look for a single location, which is in your local, and look for global catalog, okay, to search for specific user. Okay. Next one, what are operation masters? So before I go there, I want to check. Uy, that's done. So domain controller is finished. So we're gonna log in as domain admin. So how do you log in as domain admin? It should be Nexus/administrator. Okay. So this is our first time to log into domain controller. Okay. So we have a domain controller which holds the 5 operations master. So what are the 5 ops master? I'll discuss that now. So first, how do you open domain controllers? So many ways. You can open in so many ways. Like you can click this one and go to tools. Then there's Active Directory, or you can type dsa.msc. The server manager. Okay. Server manager. Then click tools. And then there's Active Directory. Yun. Active Directory, users and computers. I want to check. Yeah, this is server 1. Okay. So how to join in a domain. Click system info. Okay, I'm gonna go back to server 1, which is domain controller. So that's done. So you can see our first domain is Nexus local. Then by default, it will create OU. Okay, multiple OU. By default, it will create a lot of groups. Okay, so what groups are they? Yeah. So if you want to dig more information about that one, you can see from here. So these are default users created. Yeah. It will create performance monitor user. A member can access performance. It will create a schema admins to create admins. Most importantly, it will create administrators group, which is a built-in admin group, which is ito yan, administrators, which is part of global group. Okay, as well as a domain local group. No? Administrator is the user account. Administrators, yeah. So this is the user. Administrators with S is a global account. Ayan, global. Sorry. Administrator is a local which exists on each host. Okay? Administrators. First member ng administrators is administrator. So that's why we're gonna log in using administrator. Okay? We're gonna create our, ayan, ayan. So sa computers, it includes all member of the domain. So as of now, we only have single computer, right? We only have server 1. So if you refresh this one, dito sa domain controller, lalabas yung server 1. Kasi we only have a single domain controller, right? And at the same time, Global catalog siya. Global catalog siya. Na? So once we join the next server sa domain, there will be server 2 kasi server 2 to. Okay, so I'm gonna join this one to the domain. Change from work group to domain. So the domain name is nexus.local. And then it will ask for username, password. So you just have to provide the domain username and password. Okay, so Nexus administrator and the same password. So do not change the password because some student, they keep on changing, then they have problem in joining the domain. So you have to join server 2 and server 3 in our domain. So it says, welcome to the domain. Okay, then you have to reboot. Okay. Now for our next project, project number 2, we're gonna make that one our second Active Directory. So what role are we going to install? By default, the 5 roles are already installed. Yeah? So what is Ops Master or Operation Master? In Multi-Master, so what is Multi-Master? Multi-Master by default, when you install multiple domains, everyone is a master. There's no primary or secondary backup. Okay? In Multi-Master, some operation must be single. They should have single operation. Why? No? So they will not be overwhelmed. Let's say, for example, your role is a server engineer. Your main function is to manage server, right? Not network. So you're not a network engineer and you're not an architect. Okay. And you are not also a help desk because you're a server engineer. Right? So in short, single DC ideally should have a single operation. Some function. Try to imagine if you're a jack of all trades. You're a Windows admin, network engineer, help desk level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're also the manager. What will happen to you? No, anybody.
Burn out.
You'll explode.
Oh, you
You're
will
dead.
explode. Makapabaliw ka na nun.
Stress.
Akin na lahat. Oh my God, makapabaliw na yun, no? So ganun din, and that's similar to our domain controller.
Malaki naman daw ang sweldo, sir eh.
Malakas sweldo, no? Lahat sa'yo work. So pag hiwa-hiwalayin natin, okay?
Malaki problem.
Malaking problem yan.
May hugot, may hugot.
So sa'yo na lahat, no? So gawin mo single master. So isang role lang. Just single na. Or dalawang role. Okay? So fees mo, flexible, single master. Kasi flexible ka. You can have the whole forest or the whole domain. So ilang options. No? Either this one or this one. Okay? So what are these roles? Ano ba itong role na to? So those roles can be transferred. Okay? Pwedeng i-transfer from one domain to another. Okay, so since this is part of the member domain, so when I refresh this one, okay, refresh ko to. So there should be 2. Sorry, computer pala, dito pala. Here. So there should be a server 2 because I just joined to the domain. Server 2. Refresh. Ayun, server, okay? That's what will happen if you join the computer. Now, as of now, I still have a single server, a single domain. I'll make 2, okay? So once I log in successfully. Okay, if you notice, this is a local admin. So you have to click other users. You have to log in as global administrator. You have to log in as global admin. See the difference? Okay, global and local. Local, you only have permission to yourself. Global, you have permission in a domain as well to add computer. Okay, while doing a post-installation task, later on we're gonna transfer one role, let's say read master, to another role, no? To another DC. And we will see, we will remove that one from server 1 to server 2. Okay, so first of all, what is domain naming master? Okay, domain naming master is the one responsible for adding and removing servers in a domain. So what will happen if domain naming master is down? You won't be able to add or join server in a domain. Malinaw. Is that clear? Add, remove. Schema master.
Here.
Okay. Schema master is the one responsible for the database, like rows and tables of the Active Directory. Okay. I'll demonstrate to you. So here I'm gonna open ICE. Tagal naman mag-open ng ICE na to. I'll open ICE. Or here, I'm just gonna go PowerShell. So ayun, so can you see the PowerShell? Okay, just select the PowerShell. From here, I'm gonna open the PowerShell again. PowerShell, there's a PowerShell. Click, okay. Ella. And so while opening, okay, I'm gonna make this server 2 to be additional domain controller in a single domain. Okay, so saying still reading. Is it done? Okay, add role. Still reading pa rin. Tagal na. Read master, or it's called relative ID master, provides a pool of read for each DC. Remember, you have security ID for each user. Okay, so when you create a user, it has a unique ID. And the one responsible for assigning unique ID, such as global unique identifier, a relative ID, and security ID, is the read master. What does read master do? Assigning security ID. So what will happen if this one is off? You won't be able to create users. Okay. Next is infra master. Infra master. Infrastructure master is the one responsible for global groups and the universal group replication. Let's say you have external forest and you would like to replicate any member of the external forest. He's the one responsible for doing synchronization. All right. Let's say you added a new employee in a group. Then they log in to your local domain. He can log in. But if you move to a different domain, let's say different forest, you won't be able to, kasi the inframaster did not replicate that user from source to destination. Okay, so he's the one responsible in replication groups. Okay, next is the emulator master. If this one is unavailable, or slow to respond, there'll be problem in time zone, time synchronization. Hence, you will experience trust relationship problem. No, laging ka. Then you will see trust relationship issue, meaning your domain doesn't trust you. No, not necessarily wrong time, pero your environment is not emulated in an original domain. So he's the one responsible for emulating the primary domain. Though wala na yung concept na primary or secondary. Okay? Okay, so how will you check the role of each domain controller? No? So the command is netdom, just write it down, netdom fismo query. So type netdom flexible single master operation query. Huh? Baliktad. Netdom query fismo. Okay, yeah. So we're asking what role the server one has. So he has the schema master, okay, the domain naming master, PDC, read master, infra master, everything. No, so overwhelm na yan. Overwhelm, no, and not ideal. Ideally, PDC, read pool, infra is on another domain controller. Okay, which we're gonna do. So we're gonna promote server 2 to become another domain controller. Okay. So can you see this one? Active Directory Domain Services. Okay. Add all features. So wait for it. Ayan. See the check mark? Next. That's all you need to do. Next. Then restart the server when needed. Okay. So what it will do is it will perform inventory. And then it will check the requirements. And then it will try to connect to the master, to the first domain controller, which is this one. And then it will install Active Directory feature, then promote to domain controller, then synchronize everything. No? Synchronize niya yung laman nito. Everything. As of now, we have server 2. And as of now, we only have single domain controller. So after that, this will become server 1 and 2. Okay, so that will take a while. Let's leave this one for a moment and let's continue our discussion. Okay. Tapos na pala. That's it. So that's it. That's the module 2. So last task natin, we're gonna transfer the role to another. Okay. So to transfer, we will transfer this isa lang, let's say PDC emulator from server 1 to server 2. Okay. And then I'm gonna create a OU. This should be propagated to another domain controller. Okay, new OU. OU. Lagay natin Nexus OU. Na? Okay, so may OU. And then let's create a user from that OU. So how to create a user? User. Let's say Ellen Adarna. Adarna. Okay. With the UPN of Ellen at nexus.local. And then put a password. So this is how you create account. Okay. Then we can use that account to log in anywhere in a domain. Okay. So the expectation is this OU with one user should be propagated in server 2. Okay? Yun ang expectation natin. Okay? So that will take a while. So same step as I created a while ago. No? And then project 2, you can also perform installation using Powershell. So I'll show you if you want Powershell. So remember I gave you a PowerShell script, which is this one. Okay. So if you want to install, let's say you have another Active Directory server, let's say, for example, server 4, you can do the installation as well. Okay, so the command to install is pretty much the same. Install Windows feature, press tab. I press tab, no? And then the name of the feature you want to install in this case is AD domain services, including everything, include management tool. Okay, so if I hit OK, and you all know na AD has been installed, it will just say installed. Tingnan nyo, collecting done, tapos. Okay, no change needed because it's been installed. Okay, but if not installed, it will install. So next, how do you verify if we have installed AD? So get command and the module you want to ask, which is ADDS deployment. So these are all the AD modules that's been installed. No? If you want to remove, uninstall domain controller. No? If you want to check the domain, get AD domain. So what's our domain? Nexus local. Remember? And Nexus local. He is the read master and everything. Okay, this is the global unique identifier. This is the net bias name. Net bias ibig sabihin, meaning if you have Windows 7, it will try to authenticate using this name. And this is the domain security ID. Security ID is the unique identifier which identify server 1 is the first domain controller. Okay, unique yan. Notice mo 725. This one will be different. So on server 2, I'm sliding on server 2. I'm going to promote this server to become another domain controller. Remember, the scenario, server 2 will become another domain controller in our Nexus local forest. Okay, so pangalawang member domain lang siya. So I'll be selecting the second option. Sorry. First option, add domain to an existing domain. Okay, so it auto-detected the existing domain. Next, remember we provided the username password a while ago. So you need to use Nexus domain account. Okay, so it's trying to communicate dito. Trying to communicate. Communicates. What's the password? What's the password? So don't worry, building infrastructure really takes a while, no? But the succeeding topic will be quick. So same password, same DSRM. So what is DSRM? If you want to restore an Active Directory database, you'll be using this password. Okay? And if you want to synchronize from one domain controller to another, that's the password. So I would like to replicate from any DC. So I can also select server 1 because server 1 is DC. Pero what if I added another domain controller? He won't be able to replicate. No? That's why I'm selecting any DC. Then same location unless you want to specify different data store. Next one. And then it will do a prerequisite validation, verifying DC operation, verifying ops master. Okay. So the target server is 2. And then once the prerequisite check is done, we can start doing installation. Ayan. Prerequisite success. Install. Okay, so it's installing AD and then promoting AD, domain controller, checking domain. Okay. And then later it will check for any existing objects and propagate data. Okay, and that will do a couple of reboots. Any questions so far? So after this topic, we're gonna proceed with module 3, user creation. So we're gonna be creating users since we have Active Directory already. Okay. So let's wait until this one is finished. I think this one will take a while.
Sir, question po.
Go ahead.
Yung database po ni AD and sysvol, would it be best practice or magkakaroon po ba tayo ng, say for example, common problem if other than the default location natin siya ilagay? Like in a different storage, something like that.
Yeah, you have to specify by default. Maganda ideally by default na lang. So let's say nilagay mo sa different sysvol, no? Okay. So the next time you created a user, it will be looking for the location which you initially assigned. Kasama inassign originally. So kung magkaiba sa iba, na, pero inassign mo naman doon, it will detect naman yung database location. Malalaman niya. Na. Pero problem niyan, when you create a script, mahirapan yung admin. Saan ba yung sysvol? Saan ba yung staging ko? Saan ba yung domain ko? No? Malaking transition yan. So sysvol contains your domain, di ba? Mahirapan siya. So accept defaults na lang. Ayun yung domain ko. Under sysvol by default.
Okay, sir. Copy. Thank you.
Welcome.
Sir, question.
Go ahead.
Sir, you mentioned about data store. Can you elaborate yung meaning ng data store, sir?
Nakamute ka yata, sir.
Ay, nakamute nga ako. Nakamute.
Oh.
Sorry, na-mute ka. Huling question. So, ano yung data store? Data store contains sysvol, which contains your database of your domains, all your domains, log files, transactional logs, and scripts. So dito sa domain natin, ayan na, can you see the scripts? So if you have login scripts, automated scripts will be defaulted to this folder sa scripts. So dito siya pupunta. Okay? Okay. If you have a group policies, no, naka-store din siya dito sa policies natin. So by default, it will go here. So as of now, we have two default domain policy. So data store is the location of Active Directory, policies, scripts, volumes, logs, and everything. Okay, he's saying it's the configuring DNS, he's replicating the DNS record. So this will be our secondary DNS as per plan. So magiging secondary DNS, yan. So mamaya failover natin, papatayin natin DNS here. Tingnan natin kung nagpa-function. So as of now, dalawa na. No, second AD na siya. So it has to be rebooted for changes to take effect. Mag-reboot yan. And then you will notice sa Active Directory natin, remember domain controller is only one. Okay, click ko yung refresh. I will click the refresh. We have two. Okay, two domain controller. So we have successfully created load balancing failover domain controller. Then let's log into our second server. And ideally, the objects should be replicated already. Okay? Tingnan natin yan let's see that before we go into our break. So next break natin probably 10:30. 10:40. So break natin either 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No? Lunch is 30 minutes. Okay, any question? Any question?
A question, sir.
Okay, okay.
Sir,
So,
enough na ba yung 4 gig RAM para sa lab natin?
ako, kagapang ka na pa.
Gagawin
6 gig,
Ah,
6 gig.
6 gig, okay, sir. Sige. Sir,
Well,
thank you, sir.
enough yun if, well, DC, hindi tatakbo ng 1 gig. Tinry ko, nag-run, but you will encounter a lot of errors.
Okay, sir.
Like
Sige.
magka-crash. Minimum actually 4 4
Okay,
gig for domain controller.
Okay, sir. Thank you po,
Pero
sir.
most laptop has 8 gig already, di ba?
Sir,
Standard.
question din po.
Mhm.
Na mayroon akong lab, sir, pero nag-VM din ako. Pero ang ginawa ko dito, dito na ako mismo nag-install ng tatlong domain controller or Active Directory.
Wow, galing naman. Ayan,
Kaso,
maganda, naka-follow. That's good.
medyo malaki siya kumain ng resources, sir. Mas ideal ba yung ganito mong setup?
Oo, mas maganda sa laptop mo na lang. Solid
Sir,
state ka, tapos 8 gig ka.
naka-desktop naman ako, sir, na SSD.
Mas
Ang gusto ko lang
mabilis.
is, yung setup mo nito, isang virtual ka lang na domain controller, then nag-Hyper-V ka.
Ganun
Parang
nga.
mas okay ba yan? Mas mounty ba yung resources na kinakaya niya sa laptop mo?
Oo, mas ideal yan. Kasi
Okay.
Windows 10 Pro, tapos lagyan mo ng Hyper-V, tapos sa
Okay.
loob, no? Kung ano yung ginawa ko, yung pinakita ko kanina.
Okay. Sige, sir.
In English, yeah, you should be using Win 10 Pro or Windows 2019, then install Hyper-V like the one I demonstrated a while ago. Okay? Same
Okay.
steps, whatever I shown you. No, it's taking a while to log in. I think let's have a break for a while waiting. You know? So
Sir?
yeah, question. Say, go ahead.
Sir, yung nabanggit mo po na minimum na 4 gig, sir, storage ba yun?
RAM.
RAM yun. Okay,
Memory.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Memory. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's while waiting, let's have a break, 10-minute break. Let's resume at 10:40. Okay, okay. 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 See,
Yes, sir.
I'll leave the Zoom open.
Tapos nag-create ka same name, what will happen pagka ang gamit mo PowerShell? I-accept ba ng system yan or mag-error?
Yeah. Yung kanina, nag-create tayo same name, pero dinelete natin. We deleted the first one.
What happened kung hindi mo nga dinelete yung nauna?
Error. Sabihin user exist. Yun lang.
Yun lang.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. On the next one, remember we have all the Forest FSMO, Flexible Single Master, is assigned to server 1. Okay. So you want to balance the load so it will not be overwhelming. So how do you do that? So we're going to transfer and seize the role. So that's our last project for module 2. So we're going to transfer PDC read master, and we're going to seize from server 1 and transfer to the second one. Okay, so very simple. So just want to make clear, server 1 has all the responsibility. So how do you transfer? So just go to server 2 operations masters. We want to transfer the read master from 1 to 2. Just click change. Yes. Okay, nalipat na sa atin yan. PDC, I'm gonna transfer from 1 to 2. Click change. Okay, so 2 roles has been seized from this. Tingnan nyo, 2 roles, PDC and read master. So from server 1, it's been transferred to server 2. Okay, working. It's been seized, been removed, and been transferred to server 2. So check this out. Oh, PDC, read pool manager, has been transferred to 2. Okay, so that's how you seize, transfer and seize role. Okay, so why do you need to do that? Let's say the original server is flaky or buggy, or you need to perform upgrade. Now transfer mo na yung role. So you need to transfer the role first before you shut down this, or before you decommission that one. Okay, so how do you put it back? So you have to do it from here. Operations master, from 2 to 1. Yan lang. It's very simple. Right? PDC emulator, transfer from 2 to 1. Yes, done. So we have reverted back from 2 to the original location.
Sir,
You know? Oh, can you see that?
question.
Question.
Sir, seamless naman yan no? Sa kasali, no?
Oh,
Wala naman
seamless.
magiging effect. Seamless.
Seamless meaning you can slide from one another. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's the end of project number 2. Any question before we go to number 3? Any question? Any question? Wala na. Wala na.
Wala na, sir. Wala na.
Sir, quick question lang po regarding sa users. Mag-create po ako ng user. Di ba may mga na-create po akong users ngayon? And then di ba may first name and last name po? May script po ba para kumbaga maayos yung format ng mga users?
Yes. And
Halimbawa,
that's the most exciting part. Meron tayong script dyan.
sige pa.
So, ito. Mahabang kwento yan. So, username, password, first name, last name, department, blah, blah, blah. Okay? May script para dyan. Okay, so before we go to third topic, third module, we're gonna pause for a while kasi I need to join server 3. Saan yung server 3? I need to join server 3 back to join to the domain pa. Okay, so tatagalan to. So patay pa kasing server 3 ko. Okay, so we'll have siguro so what will be our next break? From 10:50 to 11:05. Okay, so we're gonna have a break from 10:50, and then let's resume after 15 minutes. Hoping I have joined this one to the domain already. Okay. Okay, see you later. So I'm gonna stop and please join back.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.